afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to the, I guess this is the February board meeting that's occurring in March, if we would categorize it that way. We'll start, sorry for being a minute late here. I think we've got enough people that we can get started with our Pledge of Allegiance.
Sure can.
Thank you. Sylvette, you want to mute everybody so that there's not a cacophony?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's we couldn't hear him. Sorry.
Thank you, everybody. Sylvette, would you please conduct a roll call?
Yes, sir. Paul Anthony.
Here.
Robert Brooks.
Here.
Frank Facciano.
Here.
Don Godshaw.
Here.
Justin Grimshaw.
Here.
John Hayes.
Here.
Ron Heckman. Larry Hemberger. James Irwin. Jeff Matskin. Glenn Reedman.
Present.
Mike Stershik.
Here.
Matt Turk.
I'm here.
Chris Worley.
Here.
Tara Zarinsky. Here. We have a quorum.
Awesome. So we're unable to do this in January, but I want to start today by, well, actually, first ask, I guess, if we have any public comments on that.
We do not, sir.
Okay, thanks. So I wanted to start by introducing and welcoming our two newest members of the authority joining us from Northampton County and give them a couple minutes to introduce themselves to the board. Obviously, you heard that they're both here on our roll call, but we want to welcome Paul Anthony from Northampton County and Robert Brooks from Northampton County. Paul, do you want to just say a quick word of introduction?
Sure, I'm trying to get my camera going here. I might need Justin for that one, sorry. So I'm Paul Anthony. I'm a business manager for the IBW Local Unit 375. I am a rep from Northampton County, and I appreciate the opportunity to represent the county.
Awesome, thank you. Robert, is it Robert or Bob or Rob?
Bob is good. Don't ask Irwin because I'm sure he has a few other names for me.
Mr. Brooks, we'll go with that.
Bob is good, really is. Thank you very much. Again, I'm Bob Brooks. I am a Bethlehem firefighter. By trade, I am the president of the Pennsylvania Professional Firefighters now. I took that over December 13th. I was appointed to the board to kind of, get involved and help out because I have a big mouth and I always raise questions and problems. So every time I seem to do that, I end up in a new position. But I'm here to try and help, facilitate and make things work better. Try and use the airport as much as I possibly can for personal use and for business. And we'll continue to try and do that.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, let's get to business. First order of business is the approval of our minutes from our January 25th meeting. It is in Novus. I hope you've had an opportunity to look over those minutes, and I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. And I got a second. All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Thank you. Moving on to reports from our committees, we'll start with our treasurer's report. Todd, if you don't mind doing the honor.
Sure, I'll walk through. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see everybody here. It's nice. Before I get started, I wanted to point out Shane. He's our new assistant accounting manager. He's in the caring spot, not taking caring spot, but he's just keeping it warm over there while she's fully recovering. But she is back today, so we're good to see that. Good. All right. Start off with the traffic. January traffic. Obviously, remember last year, really bad. The first quarter, I think you've heard me say that a few times, how bad we started off last year. not quite as good as we thought it would be, but again, all things considered, pretty good. Down about 19% from 2020 and down 9% versus 2019. And again, you can see that we're kind of in that 2018, 2017 range as far as traffic. Next slide there. This is kind of a benchmark, which is always helpful to kind of see where we are versus all U.S. airports. You can see it down at the bottom there. Throughput going through the checkpoints. All airports were down 5.5. We were down 11%. So this is versus 2019, same period. You can see all airports seats were up 1.2. Our seats are actually up 10.3. You can see our little dot there if that makes you feel good about that. And this is also comparing us to non-hubs in the eastern region. And if you've seen us do our benchmarking, we do that benchmarking of other airports. This is the same airports that we use here. So you can see down there that MDT, excuse me, I think it's, MDT is Harrisburg, I believe. Yep. So that's, you can see that one down there, that's minus 25.9. Down at ABP is Scranton, you see that minus 42.6. So all things considered, you know, our peers are at minus 31, with throughput, we're down 11, and obviously they're struggling with seats where our seats are up. Next slide.
Frequent revenue, Todd, differentiations between us and the peer group, what, besides Allegiant, are there other aspects of play there that have helped?
That's predominantly the driver is, you know, the leisure market right now.
And you also got to remember, even with the Allegiant, is that we added the crew base right before the pandemic. So we really never got to see the full impact of that, and we're starting to see some of that now. So that's kind of, it's kind of a 1-2
Yeah,
punch.
I didn't know if there was anything else there besides Allegiant. I figured that was the primary.
So again, always nice to start the year off on a positive note. You remember our budget was one of integrity, so we had a lot of positions in there that we put in there that we didn't necessarily hire yet, but they're in there, so the positions are available. But we expected full staffing to be at 352,000 negative on net income. We're actually a positive 299. So all things considered, great way to start out. January is 1 month. I don't get too excited, but again, it's a really good to have that kind of positive variance as we start off the year, particularly given the fact that we had a very bad month as far as snow. Snow budget is 300,000. I think you've heard me say that. Mike probably knows that. Got to memorize 300,000 for the year. We spent about 150,000 just in January.
Wait till February's de-icing bill comes.
But there's de-icing revenue too, so that comes too. So next up. And you can kind of see here kind of the big impacts, as I said, salary and wages obviously at the top. Aviation services, that excludes de-icing on the revenue side. De-icing, number 3 up there. So even though we had the high expenses, we did have additional revenue from the de-icing. Again, I always get excited about positive revenue, because you've heard me say you can't cut your way to success. Yes, Don?
How do we get money from de-icing?
I don't want to steal Connie's thunder. That's kind of her neck of the woods, but you want to give them a few words on that, Connie?
Sure, Don. It's a service that we provide for the air carriers. So we have about 6 customers, and whenever we have snow or ice on the aircraft, our team clears the snow and ice and the frost off each aircraft, and then we bill them for the service.
Awesome. Thank you.
Couldn't have said it better. That's why, you know, I want to get Connie up there. Always makes me feel good when Connie speaks. She should do all the presentations. Next slide. This is our cash flow. Again, that black line there is our 60 days cash on hand, and that's after reserves, and we want to stay above that line. But you can see in January, we're about 147. We go up and down, and then in January of next year, we're expecting to be about 147 again. That 159, excuse me, that 59,000 is about $10,000 higher than last year's cost per day. And again, that's because of the additional staffing and costs that we added into our budget this year. Next slide. Again, you have a good month, keep it brief, and move on. Any questions?
Just, so how many positions are available here at the
I
airport?
forgot what the number was. You asked me that in the other. Write it down here.
And you said, at the committee meeting, you said we hired 6 people, but then you made a comment about the net, so we lost some too, in other words.
Sure.
How many?
But I think our number was, I think it was 226, I believe, FTEs that we budgeted for January, and we had about 192 FTE. So that was the biggest difference right there.
So we're hiring,
We are hiring.
We are hiring,
like everyone.
like everybody else. So.
That's right.
But again, that 226, that's full staffing. Again, and then we had this conversation with.
That's what you're budgeted for.
That's what we're budgeted for. So again, sometimes folks play this game where they say, well, we're going to hire them in May and we'll add them in May. We actually added them end of last year. So that's kind of some of our cushion that we have built in there. It gives us some flexibility. Now, airlines weren't too happy about that. But again, we'll settle up at the end of the year based on what we actually.
Why were they in
Because they would have to fund for all those positions that we don't necessarily have.
Gotcha.
So, but at the end of the year, obviously, we settle up based on what we actually spend.
Right.
Yes.
What's the average that the airport runs at? If 226 is high, what's normal?
That's not really high. That's kind of what we were before the pandemic. So we're trying to get back up to the level we were before. It's just been a slow process. You got to remember, we went down a lot during the pandemic, both in activity and in FTEs, and now we're just trying to climb back up.
Yeah. So again, of the 226 we're budgeted for, we have 191
92, somewhere around there.
right now.
That's right.
Yes.
So my question was, the difference, it's like 34 employees, but where are those employees coming from? Like what kind of, like, are they all service? Are they?
I mean, they're kind of all across the gamut. I mean, we're seeing it, certainly on some of our frontline folks as we compete for those kind of entry-level jobs, that's really where we're struggling. But we're seeing it everywhere. I mean, you're seeing that compression everywhere. All jobs are hard to come by. And it's not just, it's the professional jobs, it's the mechanics that we're looking at, it's some of the electricians. It's across the board. It's everywhere. So I couldn't say in one area in particular, but you certainly feel it more on the front line because those are the ones where you really see a lot more competition.
Right. And what are we doing to mitigate that competition? Are we having any incentives, like sign-on bonuses or anything like that?
Yes, we do have sign-on bonuses, and we've also made some adjustments to wage rates, as have many employers. So
Okay.
a lot of the same strategies.
Still hard to compete.
It is difficult to compete. And again, these are FTEs, so it's not actually a head count.
Right.
This is, based on a full-time equivalent, based on hours. And so we're, managing that a little bit through overtime, but obviously that's not something we want to do. So it's working through the process of getting people in the door, which is part of the challenge I think we've talked about.
So it's $59,000 a day versus $49,000 last year is our expense per
day.
And again, we're trying to get back to that 2019 staffing level, but again, our current activity levels are around that 2018, 2017 level in terms of what we're seeing in terms of passenger and aircraft activity. So we're not in a desperate situation, but we certainly know that as the activity grows, as we come out of the pandemic, we certainly want to be in a position where we're already working right now, which is why we looked at that budget amendment last year already to get us started on that process.
As you remember last year, we had kind of that spurt on summer that we were just not ready for. It just hit us so hard. So that's part of the reason we wanted to staff up now, because when it comes, it's too late. We want to be ahead of it as much as we can.
Well, whenever I get on or off a flight, I see Connie, so I expect her to see you on the tarmac soon.
Connie's like everywhere. She's like Waldo. She's like on everything. Any other questions, concerns? Okay.
Excellent. I'd ask for a motion to accept Todd's treasurer's report.
Move.
Take one of those as a second. All in favor of approving the treasurer's report, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, treasurer's report is accepted. Frank, you want to take over for the finance committee?
Finance Committee, I'm gonna turn it over to Todd.
Okay, I'll do my best to hold it up for you, Frank.
Thanks, man.
This is a lease line that we're trying to, we're seeking approval for $500,000 from Univest. And what we're trying to do is have enough lease lines as kind of reserves for some of our equipment and some of our capital purchases. Sometimes some of those things are unanticipated, so it's just nice to have a reserve. Think of it as almost like a home equity line that you need just in case something happens and breaks. Some of them we use strategically, but it's also nice to have it for things that we didn't necessarily see coming that might break ahead of time. So this one, we did one last month, if you remember, for BMO. I think we have approximately, it was $4 million, but we have approximately 1.3-ish left over on that, somewhere around there, 1.4 on that one. This one's 500, and then we have another one. So our goal is to have approximately 400, it's going to be 4 million of unused lease line available for us. And this one obviously is at a good rate. It's 2.59, no fees up front. We had some discussions about this last month in our finance meeting, and we actually went back to them and were able to secure a much better deal. And John, who's obviously our in-house expert, has kind of given his semi-thumb of approval.
Oh, thumb of approval.
Okay. So I think it's something, anytime we'll use it, it will be reflected in the cash flow. But again, we don't pay for it unless we use it. Think of it again, almost like your home equity line. It's just a little bit peace of mind in case you need it, it's there for you. So I'm asking for approval on this. I guess somebody has to.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thanks, Todd. You're approved.
Okay, then we have another one that we're doing with Fidelity, and as you remember, Fidelity was one of the banks that is part of our consortium. So we're looking to expand the relationship there. That one-time fee there of $500 has been removed. This is our original one. I actually did talk to them already, and they said no problem. And actually, with that discussion, we were able to lower the actual rate. So right now, we're dealing with Wall Street Prime, which is 3.25 times 82%. They agreed to go Wall Street Prime minus 0.25 times 82. So we're about 2.49, somewhere like that. So we got actually a better rate. The only real fees is $350 for each lease as we use it. Again, that's kind of de minimis because we're not going to get more than, we're probably going to do these in at least $300,000-$400,000 increments. So again, we're only going to use it as needed, but it's just good. Again, if you remember last year, we had some unexpected emergencies, so it's good to have this online. And the nice thing I really liked about this, and I pointed out on our committee, is we're able to use this for used equipment. And when I say used equipment, it's just, it doesn't have the timeline. A lot of times when you do these lease lines, you're trying to secure enough money at one time. And with the used line, it gives you more time. So, for example, if we had new equipment that cost us $200,000, we're trying to get to $500,000. If it took us longer than 6 months, they would say, no, that original $200,000 is old now. You can't use it. This kind of gives us that flexibility to kind of get to those lines along the way. So, again, I think it's something we should approve. I think, John, given his semi, or
Yeah, with the origination fee going away, I was fine with it, so I'll move to approve. And then I just have one comment.
okay.
Second.
Can I get a second?
Second. And then
Thank you.
the comment is just to keep in mind, anything based on primes going up in a week. So it's actually 2 weeks. So betting line, I wouldn't guess as to what it's going to be, but we're looking at prime rate increases this year. So keep that in mind if you need it in terms of timing to fund, because that'll play a role in what rate we get.
But again, it's also a matter of having those, projects right in hand at that time. So sometimes it's a little bit beyond our control. But,
Yeah, true.
So, but that's a good point to know. So his prime's been stuck at 3.25 for a long time.
Over 2 years.
All right, we have a motion. Can I take a vote? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Todd, you have a final item?
Yeah, the final item is just kind of, we just added an additional line to our original schedule of rates and charges, just for clarification. If you go there where it says kind of toward the middle of the phrase, there's a signature main terminal rate, and then there's a little bit further down, there's a signature blended terminal rate, just for clarification. We have the main terminal rate, which they pay for square footage, which is here, and then across over the other side is Wiley. Wiley is obviously a little cheaper, but then there's a blended rate, which is kind of what we charge them based on an estimate of who uses what space. So it's just more for illustration. So again, just for clarification, because we put all three in our formal rates and charges, we want to put all three in the document. Nothing really changed. It doesn't change anything. And again, you know, keep in mind on these rates and charges, which we'll talk about at some point down the road, these rates and charges for the main part are cash flow items, because at the end of the year, we're going to settle up on a real cost anyhow.
Right.
So it's
Okay.
okay.
Can I have a motion to approve the change to the rates and charges?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any comment? All in favor of approving the revised rates and charges, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? All right. Thank you, Todd. Justin, you have a couple of items for us.
The first one will be the Penndot maintenance agreement. I'll hand it off to Steve.
Thank you, Justin. Good afternoon, everybody. So this is the approval of our Penndot interchange maintenance agreement. We're actually contractors for Penndot to maintain the Route 22 Airport Road interchange. And so that, I don't know if you want to just put that graphic up. It's basically mowing, sweeping, and litter collection in the interchange. So the cloverleaf, the 4 zones of the interchange and the surrounding, you know, right out to the edge of the Penndot right of way. We go over, Penndot's actually pays us to do this litter, sweeping, and mowing up to 6 times per year. Our maintenance team probably averages about 200 hours there a year with the 5 or 6 trips or so. Depending on the weather, if it's a real dry season, we're not over there as often. But, so they have some outlined where the litter collection is, where the sweeping is, and where the acreage of mowing, and how much they'll reimburse us up to 6 times a year. We've actually performed maintenance of this interchange since 1996. So it, as Tom likes to say, this is our front doorstep. Kind of allows us to make sure that this interchange looks great for any folks traveling in and out of Lehigh Valley International. Their first impression is a nice interchange. It also gives us the opportunity to do obstruction removal. If you've looked at this interchange over the years, we've been able to go in and remove trees and just keep it within our requirements for our runway protection zone. So we go over and maintain it as necessary. So this, we will be signing 3 agreements. They're listed here by number, 1 for litter, 1 for sweeping, and 1 for mowing.
Okay.
Any questions?
So we can ask for a motion to approve our executive director to authorize all of those.
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? All in favor of authorizing Tom to execute on those contracts, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Thank you.
Steve, you want
Another
to
one,
take the chilled
Steve?
water?
Sure.
Have fun.
We had a pretty good discussion about this during the committee meeting, but this is basically the removal and replacement of our chilled water plant's control system. So the actual chilled water plant is what controls the cooling for the main terminal building. And this project basically removes the obsolete and failed Generation 4 smart controls and replaces it with a new microcontrol systems brand controller. It's basically your thermostat and dial on your house. It's basically what controls the chilled water plant. We tried to acquire the Generation 5 smart control system, which is unavailable, and Smart Controls is not giving us a date when this controller would be available. And the issue is we're going to need cooling for this building in about a month. So even in April, we're going to need to run cooling, which we're not able to do at this time. The smart controller actually failed in October, but we budgeted for that replacement at that point, and now 3-4 months later, we're still not able to get the new replacement parts. So this is HT Alliance quote through CoStars. They will remove and replace the entire system for $36,000 change. The other consideration we talked about is the renting of the temporary solution, but 1 month of that would end up being about the replacement cost for the system. So we're recommending we move ahead with the CoStars contract to replace the smart controllers with the micro systems.
Okay. And it's asked for motion to approve the contract as presented.
I'll make the motion with a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. And get a second before that comment.
I'll second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Justin.
So, I mean, we had a lot of discussion on this at the committee, and it just makes sense. All publicity's not always good publicity, and I can tell you if it's hot in here, the publicity we're gonna get is not gonna be good publicity. So,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, first and foremost, that just makes sense.
And I'll actually second that comment, because when the controller went out in October, we had like a week of warmer Indian summer type weather, and our tenants and staff was not too happy that it was warm. So it won't take long to heat this building up where we'll need to do something.
Can I just clarify? Is that a temporary solution until we can get that?
No, we're abandoning the smart brand and going with the micro system. So
Okay.
the chilled water plant will work the same way it always has. It'll just be a different system control. And this is
Excellent.
What's the time frame to install? Any delays in getting the equipment with supply
Nope.
chain issues?
As
or
soon as
no?
I sign the document following this meeting, we are on schedule and they're ready to roll. So
Okay,
they're
good.
Is that why the trucks are here today? No?
HT Lines
I
trucks.
think that might be something else.
Separate project.
Because I saw them here and I thought, wow, that's
Just waiting and waiting.
Just waiting.
I might have something again for next month, but that's Todd's lease line. We like to put a hurt on that.
Well, we don't want to keep HT Lions waiting, so all in favor of approving the terminal chilled water control system replacement, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good, thank you. And that concludes our business committee update. The only update coming out of the executive committee is that we are approaching our reorganization meeting in April, and as such, I formed a nominating committee and asked Larry Hamburger to chair that committee. If you're interested in serving on that committee, the committee will form and present our executive committee with a slate of recommended officers during the March meeting. So Larry's the guy to talk to. I can guarantee you that I will be stepping down as chair. So we will be looking for a chair, as well as a host of other positions. Larry, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
My number's in the book. Just give me a call and we'll
There you go.
sign you up.
Take it easy.
We have
Thank you.
established the committee, and we've actually had a couple of inquiries already, so we're moving forward
Awesome.
in the right direction.
Appreciate you, and thank you for your time on that effort. Tom, could you provide us with your director's report, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as Todd mentioned, traffic certainly up compared to last year, but towards our January sort of 2019 levels, which we're still benchmarking against, we were down about 9.3%. Looking at the February, and of course now we have it pretty well under our belt, but looking at February's numbers nationally, traffic was down about 16%. Here at ABE, it was down about 2%. So we're still pulling in data on that. Looking ahead into this month of March, scheduled seats are projected to be down about 2.5% for us versus March of 19. Nationally, that schedule looks like it'll be down about 9% versus 2019. So a little drop off that we're seeing right now in that area. Air cargo for January, however, up significantly, 22% increase over last January. Again, we set a record last year in terms of our cargo activities, so continuing to see that growth. And then in terms of sort of what's been accomplished since our last board meeting, January 25th, we did talk about this, but are really adopting February for Miller Keystone Blood Center, really encouraging staff to make some donations. We had 18 staff members making donations to Miller Keystone, so that was a really successful drive here. On February 2nd, our staff participated in the Executive Education Academy Charter School. They had a career fair in Allentown, so we participated in that. And February 11th and the 24th, as part of Cancer Prevention Awareness Month, the cancer support community of the Greater Lehigh Valley was here in the Wiley Concourse, allowing people to sign up to honor someone affected by cancer. And that'll actually be part of an event they're holding in September, their Wings of Hope event. So it's great to include some of our passengers and staff in that event. February 21st through the 25th, we did host a pre-check event here at the terminal. We signed 311 people up. All of the appointments were filled. So again, those continue to be very successful. February 22nd, we did participate with Liberty High School at their career fair in Bethlehem. February 27th, we were over at Wind Creek at the AAA Travel Expo. And along with our staff, we had staff from TSA and Allegiant there talking about the opportunities to travel here. February 28th, we did distribute our GA Today newsletter. So that went out yesterday, and that was distributed. That's quarterly. In terms of upcoming events, for this week and even next week, we'll have 2 requests for bids being advertised, both runway projects. One is the continuation of Package 5 here at ABE, and the other will be at Queen City, runway 1533 rehabilitation. March 10th, we'll be back with Bethlehem School District at Freedom High School at their career fair, so that'll be happening on the 10th. Also on the 10th, we're having a job fair here in the terminal from 2 to 6 p.m., going back to a lot of the questions we had earlier about staffing and recruitment. So again, holding another job fair here. We'll be getting the word out on that on social media, but again, from 2 to 6.
What are we paying entry level? Entry level unskilled?
Really varies. Depending on position, whether that's in a bargaining unit or not.
Okay.
So it depends on the particular job.
Okay.
Also wanted to make mention, this thing I'm wearing is a mask. That continues to be in effect through March 18th based on TSA's directive. We'll continue to monitor that. I'm not, as John asked earlier, I'm not making any predictions on whether we'll see this extended or not, but we'll continue to keep the board advised if that will be required going forward. At this point, we've had voluntarily reported to us about 62% of our employees have been fully vaccinated based on employee reports. So that's the extent of my report, Mr. Chair. Happy to answer any questions if there are any.
I said one other question. What's the revised date for Real ID again? The 2023?
Yeah, it's May 3rd, 2023. So you've got a little bit of time, unless that one moves again, and I'm not prognosticating on that either.
Or it goes away.
The people who got it are gonna have to renew.
4 years is up.
Aren't those, looking at my driver, I feel like, aren't the new PA driver's licenses compliant at this point, though?
Only if you have a gold star on yours.
Got it.
Okay.
I'm just, there's a point at
That up
which
again, I'm gonna get the number on that.
like everybody's just gonna have them, right?
So it's not automatic. Yes, the driver's license looks different if it's been a while since you've renewed. They look different, but unless you submit all the required documentation, you're not going to get a real ID. So you have to specifically request a real ID, submit the documentation, go through that process, and then it's a one-time fee essentially that carries you, and you're good for as many renewals as you have.
And if you have a passport that's not sufficient, you have to give them other documentation as well.
That's right. It's not, yeah, you can't just use that.
It's a non-sufficient passport.
It's just not sufficient for getting Real ID. You have to
Get a
give
real
them
ID.
a utility bill, I think, and a non-laminated birth certificate.
I thought
A
you meant like
utility bill.
Sorry, I took that differently. I thought you meant like I hand them a passport and they're like, no, your passport's no good.
Oh, it's not enough.
It's gonna be like, well, you gave it
So
to
it's,
me. You know?
so it's insufficient to only have a passport.
Yeah.
Well, again, just to be clear, I want to make sure people understand, what John's saying is true. If you're trying to get a real ID at the DMV, you can't just use your passport to try to get a real ID.
Right.
There's a whole list of documentation. We can send that to the group again. It's been a while, fortunately, since we've talked about it, but if you are looking to travel domestically after May 3rd, 2023, a passport is sufficient. You don't need a real ID driver's license. A passport or passport card count as a real ID.
So somebody in Harrisburg thought that a passport was sufficient to get on the plane, but not sufficient to get a real ID.
Right. That's right.
Yes.
You can't do that. You gotta fix that.
You can.
This is not a platform.
They did.
The truth is, just as possible.
So we'll continue to keep the group updated on that date, but that's currently, again, May 3rd, 2023 is when that'll be effective.
Thank you, Mr. Stout.
Certainly.
Any other questions? Hey, Judge Friedberg.
Thank you. The standard reminder that you hear this time of the year from me, that is the financial interest forms are due, with a deadline for that is not until May 1, but Sylvette is ready to accept your forms, and that's the person you file it with. If you have any questions about filling out the financial interest forms, I am available. Contact me. I'll be more than happy to work with you to answer your questions. Once again, it's due May 1, but I will be reminding you of that. The other thing I wanted to report to you is that there was litigation filed arising from a fatal accident which occurred on Race Street and Cascade Drive near the airport. 19 defendants, including the airport authority, were named in the complaint, which was filed in the Lehigh County Court of Common Pleas. Our insurance company, the Chubb Insurance Company, is responsible for defending the airport. They have retained their in-house law firm to represent us in that case. It's filed in Lehigh County Court. An answer has been filed. There will be a vigorous defense on the part of the airport authority. It's our absolutely no responsibility for the unfortunate events that happened that day. So I will keep you advised, as I am advised by the attorney who has been hired out of the Chubb Insurance Company to represent us as to the status of that matter.
Very good.
Okay.
Any questions for Judge Friedberg?
I only have one question. For another board, the ethics statement was said that it required a wet signature. Do we require that here?
We do not.
So I can email you documents?
Yes, you can.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, I do not believe there is need for executive, or excuse me, is there any new business before the board?
If I could,
Yes,
I don't
sir.
know if this is new business or not, but I just wanted to I went through a TSA pre-check at the airport that was put out, and it went well. Unfortunately, the times filled up rather quickly. But in speaking with Colin, he helped me get through there. I want to appreciate what Colin did to help me get through, and how in all, at the end of the day, it was very speedy to go in, get it done, and I have the pre-check now. It was fantastic. I thank everybody for the help and for putting that out there.
That is the expected high level of service that you'll get from the fantastic staff at the airport authority. Glad to see they treated you well.
And we'll have more pre-check events coming.
If there's no need for executive session, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
I just had a question.
Yes, sir.
Being the state of the world right now, are we looking at other security measures here locally at the airport? Not that I need to know what they are, but are we stepping up security in any way, shape, or form?
So I know we had a conversation around this from a cybersecurity perspective, and there are a number of initiatives that we're involved in, including some information sharing with industry. So we're working through the cybersecurity initiatives there, Larry. That's obviously been important. I would defer to Steve in terms of anything else. And again, to your point, we can't really discuss details of our security program, but Steve, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, Larry, we're currently in close contact with local, state, and federal authorities. We'll monitor the situation. We're receiving briefings affecting aviation. So.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, we're seeing it as well. All the regulatory authorities are stepping up. Yeah, big time.
Also, just a thought about rates and charges. Todd, are we competitive with other airports with regard to our rates and charges now, or?
I mean, we had our CPE that we did, I think the last time we did it was in 2019. And things have kind of won away from the CPE because of COVID. So I think we're more competitive than we were. I'm not sure exactly how much more competitive, just because things are kind of a lot out of control with costs during COVID. So we should be getting an updated study relatively soon, and then I'll give you specifics. But we are much more competitive than we were, to answer your question, in 2019 relatively.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we had a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 We are adjourned. We'll see everybody on March 24th. Is that correct, Colette? Or committee meetings?
That is correct for next committee meeting.